Yeah, it's weird that they're called peanuts even though they're not nuts.
That's nuts, man.
It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate, oh yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this is a Superhero Slate review for Marvel's Inhumans.
Marvel's Inhumans IMAX, it's finally out, and if you got to go check it out in theaters, this is basically like a month ahead of time before it hits TV, right?
Yep, I think it's 4 weeks, because it's going to debut Fridays on ABC. So on I think the 29th. So at the end of the month, if you don't catch it in theaters this week or next week, you can catch the first 2 episodes when they premiere at the end of the month on ABC.
And don't worry, because the first couple minutes of this podcast is going to be spoiler-free, so we'll give you our thoughts without any spoilers, and then we'll clearly let everybody know once we launch in the spoilers, which will be the majority of this podcast. So just keep your ears open and ready.
Yeah, so we have to talk about the theater-going experience, because this is very unique. This is a TV show debuting in movie theaters, but only at IMAX movie theaters.
Yes, and usually we talk about our theater-going experiences when we talk about movies, but since this is such a unique situation, I feel like we might have slightly different stories this time around.
Yeah, I've got to say, I've got to know, Mike, how many people were in the theater when you got there?
Well, so to go back to last week, when you asked me very pretty please if I would go see this so we could go talk about it, I was like, okay, I'm going to go online right now after we recorded last week, and I'm going to go look and see what the seats look like, because pretty much all the theaters I go to, you get to reserve your seat ahead of time. So I looked at, theoretically probably the peak hours that would have been for this movie, Friday night and Saturday nights, and there was maybe 1 to 2 seats sold. So it
was funny because when you were looking at them and talking with me, the more expensive the seats got, the more they were sold at, the more they had sold. I'm like, these people are not looking at what they're buying.
Yeah, and just to hedge my bets, just because I wasn't sure how well this screening was going to turn out, we went with the cheapest IMAX tickets we could get, which was Sunday morning, I think at 11:45. So I was the first person to buy seats for that showing ahead of time, but we ended up maybe having, I want to say at most 10. I don't think there was more than 10 people including us in the just giant IMAX theater.
And that's a very early Sunday morning in LA, right?
Yeah, I mean, 11:45. It was so.
Yeah. Well, most people probably hungover.
It was the first showing.
Okay. Well, I had quite the opposite. I went at a late Saturday night showing, 9:45 p.m. But I said that the parking lot was almost empty when we pulled in, and I was able to go with my friend John Myers, who was in the area, and we both went. In total, there were 4 people in my theater, so we had the other end of the spectrum.
Well, also, I don't know if this was a good thing or bad things for the Inhumans, because I don't really know if they're necessarily worried about box office. I think they're just mainly doing this for buzz. But I think this weekend was a pretty abandoned open weekend. If anything opened this weekend, I don't think it was very big. I heard of smaller movies like The Big Sick that have been getting very good reviews, which I really loved when I saw it. I heard that's opening wider in theaters just because it has nothing to compete against. So I think just if anybody went to the theater in general this weekend, no matter what you were saying, you probably had a little bit more elbow room. Yeah,
it was close to top 10 this weekend. Inhumans was compared to the regular movie box office. So. But yeah, so I was good. I don't recommend the pretzel bites at AMC theaters. They were awful and atrocious.
Okay, good to know.
But other than that, it was pretty. This is not related to the movie, but all the previews before the movie were TV commercials, and then that's when it clicked. We're watching a TV show.
Oh, so, that's different than what I had, because I got to see the Thor trailer in 2D IMAX. I got to see Black Panther in 2D IMAX.
Well, it wasn't movie trailers before the trailers. They usually do the pre-movie countdown or whatever, where they show you different things. Ours was just complete TV commercials. like
All right,
the
well,
same
they
4
know.
on repeat, and that gets annoying. But they definitely played up the we're selling commercial aspect of the show. So there's that. I guess just to beat around, not to beat around the bush, Mike. What do you think of it?
Well, I think the best way I can state it is it's better than I thought it was going to be. So I don't think that's necessarily a raving review, but I went in with very low expectations. I didn't want to spend money to go see this in theaters. I thought I would have just the same experience as if I saw it in my home. So I was already just ready to be let down. It starts off pretty strong. With some really cool visuals. Having that IMAX screen is kind of like this weird experience on a TV show budget, because it's like, oh, I'm getting these big IMAX cameras showing me this in very high quality, but then there's some scenes in the show, I want to call it a movie, but there's some scenes in the first 2 episodes where you can almost kind of see the production design lacking a little bit, because I'm seeing it in giant IMAX, so some of the details aren't being hidden as well. So that's kind of something that's kind of hard to avoid on a TV budget. But overall, I thought the viewing experience was cool. It's always nice seeing anything in IMAX 2D, where I don't have to put on glasses and worry about if the projectionist has it bright enough, and getting just like tired of the 3D visuals after like 40 minutes or something like that, and not noticing them anymore. So what's the point? So I enjoyed the 2D IMAX aspect of it. I would say maybe towards the second half, part 2, things start to get going a little bit for me. I get to see kind of more different shades of the characters. But overall, at the end of the day, you're still watching basically a TV pilot. You're watching the first episode. No matter how much money is getting poured into it, you're still at the very, very beginning of a somewhat long story. This isn't supposed to be 23 episodes. What is it, 10 or 13, somewhere in that range? I think
8.
it was
just 8.
Just 8. So they're telling a very condensed story. So even if it is 8 episodes, we only saw the first 2. So I don't think it ended on like the craziest cliffhanger, for a movie. But it's a TV show, so it's just really weird. I was expecting to really hate this and just really dig into it, and just Scott Buck ruined Iron Fist. He's going to ruin the Inhumans, but he did a better job with the Inhumans, so I don't know where the blame or the praise gets placed, but I had a better time. Now I'm going to stick with it, and I think, it's going to be easy to stick with it and watch the 8 episodes. I don't think the series is going to end up blowing me out of the water, like maybe Daredevil Season 1 or Jessica Jones Season 1. I don't think it's going to come close to that, but I think it's already on better footing than S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1, so I think that's good to start with. But honestly, I'm surprised. I wasn't expecting to come on the podcast this week and say there's actually some things I liked about it. There's, there's some weird script things that I was kind of confused over. There was a lot of saying, not showing in this show, so I don't know if they were just trying to cram a lot of explanation into these first 2 episodes, but I'm pleasantly surprised. I think they got a lot of work ahead of them. I think it could still fall off a steep cliff and just become horrible, or I think it could maybe gradually go up a little bit, but after all of these kind of rumors swirling around the last, couple weeks, months, I was expecting something really bad, and I don't know. What do you have to say, Chris? I'm really curious.
So, I'm a big Inhumans fan. Huge Inhumans fan. I wore a Blackbolt shirt and a Blackbolt jacket to the showing, right? So, I mean, I'm obviously not an Inhumans newbie, if you will.
Yeah.
And I kind of went in with a heavy heart, knowing the hearing at least whispers of the first reviews for this, and I came out very, very, I had a much better time than I thought I would. Oh, okay. But I do have to say that if you're familiar with the comic book characters, these are not your characters. These are nothing like the comic book characters. There are shades of them. And there are shades of famous storylines, much like I kept talking about the 97 Inhumans run. There are shades of that one, but it's a translated version for the MCU, but there are moments in this, and we'll talk about it here in spoilers, that I had a great time watching it, but there are times where I was just like, who the fuck is directing this? So I had more ups than downs, but there are definitely things that you can pick apart on this, and I'm like, okay, I have to get in that mentality. This is not a movie I'm watching.
Yeah.
This is a TV show, and I just think even though I am a fanboy, I can say that yes, there are bad things in here, but the reviews are being unnecessarily harsh.
Oh, really?
Well, I think so. I mean, like some people are like, yeah, you shouldn't watch this now, and you shouldn't watch this when it hits TV. Okay. Well, to me, I agree with you. It's on better footing than S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 got off, because that was a drag over hot coals to get through, much like Iron Fist was. But I definitely think that this is better than Legends of Tomorrow, which is on TV right now, in terms of engagement and the characters and everything going on. So while it may not be the Inhumans movie that we were all promised years ago, it's at least something, and it's not... I'm not offended at the end of the day if I had to, use my thing. So,
well, coming from a big super fan of Blackbolt, basically being one of he's like your number 2 favorite hero of all time, like below the Sentry, right?
Yeah, that is correct. You know my favorite characters here.
Yeah. So I think if someone like you can come out of the theater, and someone like me coming out of the theater, he's a huge pessimist that can kind of say, it's better than we thought. Surprising.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to say, but.
I guess my recommendation is, if you miss this in IMAX over the first 2 weeks, don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
You can catch it on TV and probably have just the same experience we did. It's probably not better.
Yeah, exactly. So save your money depending on where you are. IMAX tickets are really expensive. Mine for a Sunday morning, which is probably the cheapest you get these IMAX tickets, were like $12 a piece. If I would have gone on like a prime time at an expensive theater, it would have been like $20 a ticket. So that's too much for this.
Yeah, that definitely, especially when it's going to be on TV for free over the air later. So
yeah, exactly. You can get bunny ears and watch this thing for free.
That's right. So there's our initial thoughts. Better than we thought, so that's good. So now let's talk about spoilers. Let's dig into the meat of this show, Mike. If you've not seen it yet and you want to wait till the end of the first 2 episodes, bookmark this right here, come back to it later. If not, we're about to break it down. So first and foremost, Mike, I felt every TV commercial cut in this fucking thing straight. Like, I was like, at the beginning it's hard, like, okay, so Adelan is much more detailed than they gave us. They showed us in the trailer, because as you see, it starts off on the flat gray concrete, then builds back to the full city, which I was like, oh, I hope Mike enjoys this more than he thought he would. But at the same time, they kept doing the same camera movements where they pan from right or left to right and swished around like the city, and then it would do it again a minute later. I'm like, okay, that must have been a commercial cut, because we already knew where we were. We don't need to come back to it. So
yeah, I'm not a really big fan of this so-called city on the moon. It's I don't know. It just looks very like, I feel like I'm in an IKEA or something, and they just don't have any of the cool furniture. They just have all the concrete settling around them. I get it. They're building it out of moon material, so it needs to look like concrete. But when they go inside, it just looks like I'm in some sort of someone's modern house over here, on the west side of Los Angeles.
It's a fancy prison, is what it looks like. The people look like they're he's up there on a wall in a jail talking down to the inmates in some of this. And the inside, it's like, well, this is where the warden lives, and notice the concrete walls so the prisoners can't break it down, and kind of thing. So yeah, it's very weird on the inside. And the Blackbolt chamber, I was trying to figure out what it did. I don't know if he can talk in there, or if it channels his voice upwards so it doesn't blow anybody up.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about the trailer in our normal news episodes a few weeks ago, you had the idea of maybe it's a satellite dish that channels his his powers, Blackbolt's powers, and maybe it points at Earth or something, so it's a big mega weapon. So I kept waiting for them to reveal the top of this room, and lo and behold, it doesn't have a top. So I guess that could still be a possibility, but it's just kind of just but Blackbolt's character, he doesn't seem like anybody that would build any sort of mega weapon to destroy the Earth. He seems to be very pacifistic in this show. So it makes me think, what does this do? Can he talk in it? Is it just for forced flashbacks so Medusa can say, I'm not afraid of you?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a weapon. I think it maybe, if he does utter a word accidentally, it would channel his voice upwards and away from the city rather than crushing the city down.
Oh, maybe.
Kind of like a parabola disc, where you aim the beam back at people kind of thing.
Yeah, I suppose.
But who knows? We may discover this later. But it's definitely there. Speaking of the characters, let's get into the characters a little bit, Mike. Blackbolt. I kind of liked him a little more than I thought I would.
So Blackbolt is basically a vanilla nothing in part 1. He doesn't get interesting until he gets down to Honolulu, where he actually starts expressing with his face. He has like these kind of like confused looks, like, why are you people looking at me? What's going on? Like, so when he actually has something to react to, it's a little bit more exciting, and it's kind of funny to see him like interacting with humans. But when he's just like in the kingdom, he's just like all like just like silent and like not moving, and it's just like he's basically, he could just be nothing. He could just be a slab of granite, it didn't even really matter. So I liked him better once we got to Earth.
And see, that's one of the things where it breaks a little bit from the comic books. In the books, he's not as playful as he seemed to be. Like, even when he's down in the police precinct and he pulls the handcuffs off, and they're like, everyone freaked out and pointed guns at him. I'm like, okay, little overkill here. But he seemed to be a little more fun and loose in those scenarios, like you said, on Earth over that. And I think he fits the part. He looks the role. He emoted with his face. The sign language was new. They don't do that in the comics at all. So.
Yeah, my wife made sure to let me know that that's not any sort of sign language she recognized.
It is not. It is specifically created to be a sign language that they did on this Adelan. That's not based on anything.
Which does make kind of sense, because it'd be kind of weird. Like, well, where did he pick up American Sign Language from? You can kind of usually give people passes on speaking English. Just because, we were watching a TV show. But yeah, with the sign language, it's like, well, where do you get that from? So that is kind of interesting, because it's like, oh, how does Blackbolt communicate? But then it was kind of weird, like when they got separated and Medusa, basically called Blackbolt on their weird like wrist iPhones or whatever those
TV
things
budget.
She was just like, let me know you're still alive, and like they didn't know what to do. I was like, has this really never come up before? Have you never had to like call Blackbolt and get a hold of him? Like, do those things like not do like text messages or something like that, or do they not have like a video chat on them? I was like, oh, I get it. It's kind of sweet and cute that like he's putting it up to his heart and beating so his lover can hear his heart. But I was just kind of like, I feel like a royal family kingdom would have solved that problem a while ago, of having someone that doesn't know how to speak. But I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
Well, yeah, they got to build their own. They got to build their situations, Mike. Here, they got to dig out of their own holes. But speaking of Medusa, they cut her hair off quick.
Yes. Question. One thing I wanted to ask you: do you think they really cut her hair off because they thought it was the best arc for her character, or did they cut her hair off because there's no way they could afford to animate it for eight episodes?
Much like there's a lot of scenes of people just talking to the air because they're on communicators, it's budgetary for sure. But I want to see what's going to happen, because I think it'll come back, or she has the ability to like remotely control her cut hair in the comics, like, because that was a big point of one of the series.
Okay.
So I don't know, she's very she's not moody, but she's an interesting actress.
It was a very weird scene to watch her hair get cut off, because obviously, if you're very familiar with the Medusa character, and you've kind of caught me up on what she's all about when it comes to her powers, I kind of sympathize with her a little bit watching her get her head shaved, but like, fresh viewers that are just onto the show in the very first episode, just seems very weird to militantly like forcefully shave someone's head. I was like, this scene is just very awkward. I don't really understand what's going on right now. And I almost thought her hair might be kind of like super powered, like maybe you couldn't just buzz it off or something, but I don't know. I couldn't tell. But I think she actually looks a lot better with her head shaved. I don't know if she's just got a good shape cranium or what's going on there, but she looks more badass to me without the hair. So I'm not really missing out on the hair. I guess she's still a good hand-to-hand combat fighter, but I told my wife when we were driving back from the theater, I was just like, this would have been totally out of character. It would never make it on ABC at all. But the best thing that they could have done in the show is when she was fighting that one chick, Oron on the planet. I was just like, oh my gosh, when she said, "You're not so tough without your hair," if she just would have like unzipped her pants and like her pubes like attacked her, I would have lost it. I would have been like, this would have been the best show on TV, no matter what they would have done. They would have had that line in there. But I was like, I mean, you think she's got to have control over her pubes. I would imagine this is, the types of conversations that go on in comic book stores, similar to like how big is the Hulk's wiener. So
No, working in the comic book store, I've never come across any of these conversations.
I need you to bring it up the next time.
You've got some questions going for me. I'm gonna go figure it out. So mostly armpit hair, really. That's probably quicker to grow back.
Yeah, that could be too.
Yeah. So there was her. And speaking of getting our head buzzed, we have essentially Ramsay Bolton playing Maximus here. Like, kind of carries over. They left a lot of his, I guess, wheeling and dealings out of the first episode. Like, he is he's doing a hostile takeover of, this kingdom very quickly behind the scenes.
Yeah, so this is a point I wanted to bring up, and I think it would be a great segue off of his character. Of Maximus seems to make it a point to tell these people of the moon that they're in more danger than ever, and your royal family has left you in your greatest time of need, in your greatest hour of, sorrow. I don't remember exactly what he said, but they never did a very good job telling the audience what the danger was. I mean, they briefly mentioned that, like, we don't have the resources to sustain our population, but I never really saw people dying in the street or famine anywhere. Actually, when that line was brought up, they were eating at the royal table, like stuffing their face full of like all of these different types of food. So I was just like, it obviously can't be that bad, because at least our Inhuman heroes here, they at least seem to be good people. Like, they're supposed to be the good guys, the protagonists. So I don't think they would just be eating this royal food if all of their subjects out there were just starving. So I was like, well, that doesn't seem to be enough motivation for this coup exactly. So I was like, what exactly is going on bad here? I guess the moon rovers, I don't know if they're just coming at more of a pace. I guess they kind of like chastise Gorgon a little bit for his hoof showing up and that camera angle for a second, but I was just like, they seem to be taking care of these things all the time, like they're no big deal. So obviously that hasn't changed. So I just didn't really see the smoking gun or the spark that really set Maximus off.
Yeah.
Obviously he was like upset, and but usually something kind of just needs to tip the scales, and I guess it was that green guy possibly dying at the beginning. But that didn't really seem to like make anybody super sad. No one really cried when he died.
Well,
if
you don't see a body, he's not dead. That's number
exactly.
one. But number two, they changed Maximus. So in the comic books, Maximus has the ability to like mind control and like convince people to kind of do stuff for him. And like that persuasion is usually what he uses to overthrow Blackbolt and become temporary king for that issue or two. In this one, they made him essentially a human. When he went through Terrigenesis, he didn't get any powers, and he's using this little kid who has like foresight ability to predict what's going on.
Well, I would just assume and guess, since they made it a point to remind us many times that he was human and had no powers, and they beat kind of powers over the head in this kind of first two parts, that eventually he's going to get some sort of power. I would think.
He ironically, I think, said some powers take a while to manifest, and so I definitely think maybe that might be at the end. Something happens to him and his power manifest. Hopefully season 2 kind of thing. But yeah, he definitely kind of a dick all around.
He was good. I thought he was a good villain. There was times where I was just like, ooh, you are kind of annoying, so this isn't kind of working. So kind of those things are kind of what bring it back. It's the characters. And I think one of my favorite characters in the show, which I was surprised that would even come out with a favorite character, was Carnage.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was waiting for you to talk about this, because Carnage has been one of my favorite characters in the comic books for a long time. And I think what they did with him in the show kind of transcends a little bit of the books, honestly.
I mean, I kind of like how basically he has like no filter, super analytic. He's kind of like more of he's kind of like has that Spock personality, but just more of like a jackass about it. It seems like, and he's got, I guess from his power, I guess you could let me know, because I'm sure in great deal what his real power in the comic book is, but it looks like he kind of can does he have foresight, or does he have the power to like reverse time, or can he just see what the outcome is going to be, kind of like Sherlock Holmes in those movies?
So he's very Sherlock Holmesy in this, and I thought that was cool. But his power is to see the flaw in all things. So that's kind of where like his philosophy comes from. Like, everything's gonna die. That's like the flaw of it. Or, you're too easy on Maximus, Blackbolt. That's your flaw. And, here's the flaw in, like, his brain's moving so fast that he's able to figure out the flaw in his attack pattern before he does it. So
yeah, and I guess at some point when
But he doesn't use it when he's climbing down the fucking cliff.
Yeah.
I don't know what was up with that, but yes.
Yeah, but I guess he kind of said something along the lines of, I don't know what's happening to me, or I don't know what's going on. So maybe when he fell and hit his head, his powers got broke. But then if his powers are kind of foresight and not reversing time, he should have seen that coming. So I'm not really sure what's going on with him. But one thing that I thought was kind of humorous, because you were talking about in the past, you could see all of the commercial breaks. The biggest place you could see them is when part 1 transitioned to part 2, in my opinion, because they were all flashing back to like 2 minutes ago. So like you saw all these flashbacks from episode 1 at the very beginning of episode 2, but we all saw them seamless. So it was just like, why are they all having flashbacks to something we saw 60 seconds ago? Yeah. And then every single one of them, when they're like kind of like standing up and like the camera's doing the sweeping motion around them on Earth, they're just like, I have to find my king. And they all said it out loud to literally nobody. And I was like, why are they all talking to themselves out loud to literally no one that's listening? I was like, that's kind of where some of the writing got kind of sloppy. Like I said, there was a lot of saying, not showing.
So episode 2, I think, is where I saw the acting flaws really come out. The character Gorgon, who is, I can't say the actor's name.
It's like M.A. Quackor? I don't know.
Yeah. He was doing his damnedest Idris Elba impression, if I've ever seen one.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
But he's got, hooves on, and he can stomp and cat like do like size. He's like very military guy. Like, yeah, we got to attack kind of thing. But he was doing this thing where he was just yelling the words Triton at the water, and I'm like, did anyone give you any direction, or did they just say yell Triton real quick? We need to get the shot. Because it was just so awfully delivered.
And those hooves are about a 50-50 experience for me. It was really, really cool when those bad guys were sneaking up on him, and then he was just like, don't approach me downwind, you dumbasses, or something like that. And then he like smacked his hoof on the ground. I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. But then there were some shots where when he was walking into the water and the waves were crashing him, I was like, you can clearly see he's wearing like these boots that have hooves on the end of them. Like I can see where his heel and his like actual feet are.
Yeah, he's got. I think I think when he came back later, met those like hippie surfer dudes, he was putting on boots over his hooves. I'm like, well, budget right there again, buddy. So,
oh my gosh, those surfer dudes. So, I was telling my wife, I said, it's really nice that I'm sure that they're hiring like local Hawaiians to do these parts and stuff. But I was like, did they double check to make sure that they were actors first before they hired them? Because all of those surfer dudes are just like basically just like almost like they're reading off cue cards or something like that. So, I mean, yeah, I guess it's cool they're giving the locals jobs, but I was just like, I'm sure they got local theater groups there. Maybe go find those people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also came out later with the character who played Aaron, the assassin guard. She was walking through the bus or something later in the episode right before Medusa stabbed her, and like she couldn't. Every time she delivered her lines, I just was like, oh my god. I'm so glad she's dead, not coming back. And then she revived herself or something at the end. And I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where the Scott Buckness really starts to kind of show through, because it's just like we had a lot of those very similar problems with Iron Fist, where it's just like, you people are saying the dumbest shit.
Yeah, it was definitely very, very... Sometimes it was not very good. Sometimes it was great. Sometimes it was not. And that, she was a character I was like, oh, you're nothing like your comic book person, and you can't act. So
yeah, and talk about her amazing plan of telling Maximus, don't worry, I can handle this on my own. It's like, we clearly just saw in the very first part 1 that it takes way more than just one person to like nail down the royal family and keep them from like fucking things up. So what makes them think one person, whether they have powers or not, can like take them down? I was just like, why does she think that she can just do this all? And
she can barely keep the little princess who has elemental powers at bay. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, why would she readily get on her microphone after she came back from the dead and say that she needs backup? Like, wouldn't she be trying maybe to hide that and try to redeem herself? You know, I feel like Maximus would be pissed that like, well, you said you could do it and you didn't, you know? So I guess, you know, in the future episodes, it's going to be like her and her crew trying to hunt them down in Hawaii. But it was just like, I wasn't really... I mean, how many times have we seen healing powers on TV and movies before? Like the gratuitous, like, pull up the shirt and watch the wound heal. Like, I've seen that like 1,000 times. I felt like if you're going to show it, you know, at least like do it in a more creative way. Because I've seen that healing effect 1,000 times.
Yeah, so she wasn't even credited in the comics until late, like December 2014 issue or so. And she's only been in a few. And her ability is to hear anyone by choosing a word and knowing where that person was when they said it. So, like, I don't even know what they're doing with the character now. I'm like, okay, they're just kind of winging it here at this point. This character has a name and is very conveniently what's going on here. So,
winging it like those butterfly wings. I love flyers.
Yeah,
that was the weirdest line ever.
Yeah, that's from the '97 issue because the flyers are more military based. It was very like you had to know. So
I was just going to say one thing on that bit real quick when they were going through that Terrigen ritual, which I didn't think was like a bad idea. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool when it's time for somebody to transform. You know, they get to go through a whole ritual and everything, and it's a very special thing because, you know, that's what it is for these Inhumans. And it's kind of the luck of the draw. Who knows how it's going to turn out? All of those kind of story beats I think are very interesting. But like I said at the very beginning, when you can kind of see some of the gaps in the seams when you're watching on an IMAX, they open up these little drawers on the side of those like cabinets to drop the Terrigen crystal in. And there's one shot where it's just close enough where you can kind of see the hinge on them that they bought from the hardware store to put those little flaps on there. I was just like, okay, that's one of the seams that you're going to see on a TV budget shot on an IMAX camera. So I guess that's one thing to look out for that didn't really help them out there.
Yeah, definitely did not. But I guess, you know, we're talking about TV budgets here. I want to get your opinion on the dog Lockjaw. Because Lockjaw is a TV first. It's the first fully CGI character on a TV series. So I think I enjoyed him a lot more than I thought I would. But I don't like that he only listens to Crystal. So, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, it just... we think about, I guess, this TV budget more than most people will, and I guess it's more detrimental to us because I'm just thinking there's no way that they're going to have this fully CG character that actually looks pretty good. Like, he looks like he is modeled very, very well, rendered excellently on the screen. I never once thought it was weird for him to be there. But when he basically kind of gets quote unquote like neutered in that part 2, I was just like, oh, we're probably not going to see him again for like 4 more episodes. He's just going to be like snoozing, and they're going to need to like bust him out. Like, you know, Crystal or whatever her name is going to escape from her apartment and go get him or something. But yeah, I do kind of wonder how long they're going to be able to keep up with Lockjaw. His teleportation effect, I guess that's just preference of that crew over there. I thought it was kind of weird, that kind of particle effect, but at least they're trying something different. I had never seen it before. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it, but at least they tried something different.
That was kind of their explanation of it. Like everyone just kind of poofs away, right? And I feel that would make it feel a little cheaper if they just poofed and were automatically in the next scene. I'm like, oh, that's TV budget there. Like, even though we've been beaten out with a stick. But, I mean, it's hard to, like, a lot of people are like, oh, Inhumans, this sucks. Well, I'm like, it's not a movie that you go watching. This is not a movie you're watching. This is a TV show that just happened to get a theatrical release. So
yeah, and there's cool things in it every once in a while. There's cool ideas, like when Oron needs to be teleported to Earth.
Yeah.
She goes through that
Randak.
kind of like concrete rock wall thing, which you probably know more about than I do. But I was like, that's actually kind of cool. I like that and I'm assuming he's an Inhuman,
Yep.
is basically a freaking,
Eldrak,
he's a wall. So I was like, that is kind of cool. They picked a really good voice actor to do that voice, and I'm assuming they also captured his face for the role. But I was like, that's actually really cool. I like this kind of mysterious thing that, kind of, it made me feel a little bit like I was on Asgard. There's kind of magic going on there, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, in the comics, Eldrak he's just like a big face, and he opens his mouth and you walk through it. But this was much cooler than the comic book version. So because he sends you like where you need to be, kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely cool. So, I mean, I don't have much else to touch on here other than the fact everyone was. Like I went in with a heavy heart. I'm like, look, even if this is not good, I have to be true to myself. And at the end of the day, I think even Carnage scenes where it was essentially the Sherlock Holmes stuff was really cool to me to see him like have his like special kind of power. Like I feel like he got a little special treatment in there because no one else had something like that. But I think I give it a 7 out of 10 in my book, simply because. They didn't. It didn't feel like a drag to get through it, and like the characters and the story they're setting up feels like this is going to be a great 8-issue comic book that we're going to watch on screen over 2 months.
I feel like the one thing that I really there's two things I really want to see out of these series. I think one will happen and one probably won't. One thing is I'd like to get a little fan service and maybe somehow draw Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. into this show somehow. I don't think it needs to be like a huge plot point or storyline, but it would be kind of interesting maybe to see like a helicarrier or maybe some sort of S.H.I.E.L.D. jet or maybe a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent gets turned up into something. A little bit of crossover there would be kind of interesting.
They did at least mention it, so that's a plus.
Yeah, so I want to see it a little bit there. I thought it would have been better if that moon rover at the very beginning was maybe a S.H.I.E.L.D. moon rover. Maybe it wasn't. I didn't catch an insignia, but they were just operating from like a giant like warehouse, so who knows?
So actually, on the Wikipedia page, it doesn't have all the information from this episode, but it has a character called Louise, who is a human from Earth who works for a private aerospace company, and actually has been exposed to Terrigen, so she has some sort of powers. So that's actually going to tie into the story later on. We just don't know how yet.
Okay. So I don't know if that necessarily will happen of bringing S.H.I.E.L.D. in very visually, but I'm hoping for it a little bit. But I think the one thing that you would probably agree with me that you want to see that is probably one of the most kind of intimidating and badass things you can see on a comic book panel, especially like a full spread, is seeing Blackbolt really let loose and destroy something massive. Like seeing his powers on the scale that they actually are is really amazing. Even though I've never read any of the big Inhuman stories, I've seen those pages and I've seen what he can do. He can take out some of the biggest, baddest bad guys in the galaxy. So I just need to see him open up and not just like tear down like some sort of warehouse that the production found and just decided to blow up. I want to see him like take out like a city or something. I need to see like them really save up some of their budget and just really like I need him to physically make a mark on Earth like that's huge, like a crater. So I'm hoping we get to see something like that to really show how badass he can be, and I think that'd be a cool thing maybe to see in the season finale.
Yeah, I definitely do. I think like we did see him kill his parents kind of off screen a little bit, which was kind of brutal if I was going to be honest. Like that would give you traumatizing. He said why and they're just splat dead, gone. But I definitely think I do want to see him I do want to see him maybe finally get the suit, the face covering. Like I want to see them get him get a suit specifically because everyone else kind of has their comic book suits.
Yeah, and I hope that weird bandana he was wearing during that ceremony wasn't an homage to some sort of mask, because that thing was weird looking. He looked like he was trying to be a Naruto cosplayer.
The latest Inhuman series has him running a bar called the Quiet Room, which is like a neutral ground for villains and heroes and stuff like that. And he wears that. He doesn't wear the mask. He wears that as like a suit and tie kind of thing. So it's like it's like the Orin character. It's a throwaway to something recent, but it has no meaning. So they gotta. I want to see the suit. I'm gonna be honest. I want to see the suit. I also want to see some of the acting pick up a little bit, if I was to be honest. A lot of it, again, I felt it when he was yelling the word Triton and so hard, and then that Aaron character. I really hope it gets better, because these were both directed by the same character, or the same, not character, same director. So the next ones, I think the next few each have their own directors, so maybe we could see a little bit more out of them from the directors. So knock on wood, series debuts September 29th on TV. Really excited to watch it and kind of finish it and maybe end with something good, something better. The parts are better than the individual things, but I still had a good time. So I've got to be honest. So
honestly, surprised if you guys are a subscriber to the show. You know, I've been kind of poking at Chris the last couple of months, just get ready. I don't think you're ready for what you're about to see. So pleasantly surprised. So who knows? Maybe my lowered expectations helped me out a little bit more than others, but. It's eight episodes. Even if you didn't like it, I think there's still a less time investment than Scott Buck's last TV show.
I was gonna say, do you hold this higher than Iron Fist?
Oh yeah, I can't forgive what Iron Fist did.
Okay, I just want to make
especially
sure.
on their budget and the pedigree over there at Netflix. I'm not gonna let it.
Cool.
I still won't let that slide. I give more leeway to broadcast television.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it. So if anybody else happened to get out there and see it, write us your reviews. I want to know what you guys thought. Good, bad, ugly, whatever you think. Tell us, please. And I guess that's it for the show. Mike, anything else you want to add in there on the Inhumans?
No, I'm surprised, and I'm kind of looking forward to episode 3, man.
Yes, big win on this side. I feel successful. So, great, Mike. If people want to know more about what you're doing, what you're up to, where can they follow you at?
Well, they can follow me at Mike Royer Design on Twitter and Instagram, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, you've been a very busy man. You're up to a lot of things. You're going to be doing some cool things to that brand new house you just moved into. Mm-hmm. So if people want to follow you, where can they follow that?
You can find me on Twitter at Valdan, VALDAN. Thank you for people who voted to help me pick my office color where I'm recording this podcast right now. It's a nice shade of gray. Just one shade, not 50, though.
You want it to feel like Adeland.
Yeah, I do. Nice and boring. Concrete. But no, I'll be there. I'll post some pictures and stuff. I have all my pop vinyls. I bought all the Inhuman pop vinyls that are out. I will be posting those shortly this week as I dig them back out of their boxes. So look forward to that. You can read my stuff on comicui.com. You can listen to my other show, Filmside Chats, or you can check me out on the DNN on YouTube for other videos I do. So got that going for us. Mike, people may be listening to their first Superhero Slate review. Where else can they find us at?
Well, as always, please visit superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the avenues we host our show and to get our awesome show notes. So if you're listening to our normal news segments, we're going to talk about lots of cool stuff. We talk about a lot of images, trailers, leaked photos, stuff like that. You can get all of that at our show notes. A really great way to keep up on the news every week. So you can find us there at superheroslate.com, and you can find us on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Tumblr. You can subscribe and get us right in your email inbox every week, and you can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to pick up some merch, you can get that at superheroslate.com/store. And if you want to be a fan of the show, please consider leaving us a review wherever you listen. That's super awesome. We really love that. And if you're a super fan of the show, all you got to do is just share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week. And Chris, I don't know about you, but I think we should check back in on this show in about it's more than 8 weeks, but at that 8 episode mark, I'd like to talk about it as a whole series.
Well, I'm definitely down for that. So yeah, in about 16 weeks, not 16, 12 weeks, 3 months, 3 months away. I guess our next review you guys can look forward to. We've actually planned before. This was kind of a surprise on what it will be Kingsman.
That's right.
The Golden Circle. So that'll be in September. It is September. Oh, shit. So later this month we'll be doing that. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to that. So I guess we'll see you guys then.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
In the middle of the trailer, it's like some sort of geostorm, and I look over at the guy and I'm like, I bet that's the title of the movie.